Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's happening, coaches? Good morning on this. We are getting so close to Christmas time. I think we're like a week and a half away or something. My kids could tell you the countdown. I cannot tell you the countdown. Too much things going on. We are doing the ultimate crossover episode. Well, at least for me in my career. Like, this is it, man. Joe and I had Kenny on the other show a couple times before this podcast existed. But since the creation, I think this is the first crossover. So that's pretty exciting. We are talking a little 4-2-5 defense today. Joe's come over to talk about his system and what it can offer coaches that are out looking right now. We know guys right now are like, my scheme sucked last year. I need to find something. We're going to look into this. And so the podcast wants to give you those resources. So that's what this series is all about. Hi, guys.
What's up, man?
Coach Simpson, I know your son had a pretty good week, got some football honors, and then was up for a good one last night.
Yeah, we did our own football banquet. We do that every year with our team and had 6 kids make All-State. He was one of those kids, and so it was good to honor all of them. And then last night, there's a Hootens out here is like the magazine that covers the state. They do a really, really good job. They focus on high school. And he was up for their 4A Defensive Player of the Year. So he was one of the final 3. They do a really, really cool banquet. I think it's, I know a lot of states probably have stuff that is like this, but I think they do a really good job exposing our athletes and covering them. And so it's cool to be a finalist. We ended up we got beat now twice by Elkins. They beat us in the game, and then their player got the Player of the Year, probably deservingly so. They won the state championship, but really cool deal for Braden to be honored. And then, of course, I'll get to watch him play next year. He'll be playing at Harding University, which this should segue. Watch this segue here, Daniel, who runs the 4-2-5 defense.
That's right.
They've recruited him to play the will linebacker. So I may have some questions for Joe about what he needs to be prepared for. I heard a lot of buzzing out and stuff like that at the table last night because I was sitting with a guy. They won the state championship at Robinson, who also run the 4-2-5 defense. So it'll be interesting to kind of hear Joe talk about it today.
I don't have a lot of fancy words.
It's okay, though.
But I did coach I coached the will linebacker that was the number 2 leading tackler in NJCAA one year.
Yeah, Harding's kid that plays will, and I don't know if Braden's going to get to replace him. You got a red shirt and earn your way, all that stuff. But he's the all-time leading tackler in school history at Harding. So apparently that position, you better be able to make some tackles.
That's going to be awesome. Well, we're proud of Braden. We're glad that he's getting the recognition he deserves. And I know we've seen all the stuff about your seniors. Is it 33-5? Is that their final record?
Yeah, 33-5 at a really, really good group. Our quarterback, who I bring back, his record as a starter is 23-3. So we get him back for next year, and hopefully we can continue to build on that.
Absolutely. Well, we're hoping for all good things for you guys in the future. Real quick, let's jump into our quote of the week, and then we'll pitch some ads, and we'll get on with the show.
Yeah, so quote of the week coming out of Team Themes Volume 5. So we have 5 volumes of Team Themes. If you're not doing something beyond the game with your kids, you're missing out. So this is coming from the most recent one. Lou Holtz is the author of the quote. It's a pretty simple one, and I think it may speak well to Joe and to you and to me, because a lot of times when you get in this world, most people are very grateful that, hey, I appreciate you putting things out, but not everybody is. A lot of them will say, who are you to speak on this or speak on that or speak on this? To which I say, I'm nobody. I'm just trying to help. But the quote from Lou Holtz, I think, speaks to that. It says, if you burn your neighbor's house down, it doesn't make yours look any better. And I think a lot of times as coaches, we're getting into that part of the season. It's coming. Clinic season. You're going to go hear guys talk, and the immediate reaction is going to be, because I was there when I was sitting in that room, why is he more qualified than I am? And the answer is probably he's not. He's just trying to help. Yeah. If you don't like it, don't listen. And I think a lot of times as coaches, that's kind of where we get. And I think if we mature a little bit, I'll go listen to whoever speak. If they can help me get better, I'm going to listen. And if they can't, I'm probably going to leave that room and go to another room of a guy who can. Hopefully today will be a good chance for you to hear about 4-2-5 or hear about a defensive structure. And, maybe it'll help you. Maybe it won't. If it doesn't, just hit stop and move on. And if it does, maybe you'll get something from it.
Love it. All right, man. Joe, you don't have to read the whole thing, but tell us where guys, before they hear this, where can they go find you if they want to look in the Joe Daniel football system and learn more about your 4-2-5?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about 4-2-5 defense, what we do at JDFB, JoeDanielFootball.com. And we do have a free ebook download that is creating your ultimate defensive system, not specific to 4-2-5, but just the components, the things that go into building a defensive system. You can get that free download at footballdefense.com. Actually, I should say that. If you go to footballdefense.com, bought that a long time ago when things were cheap. You can go to footballdefense.com and get that.
That's so specific. It's so perfect. It probably is expensive.
Football defense would be very expensive because somebody would be sitting on it and being like, somebody will pay me $36,000 for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If I told you what I paid to get my name, because I own JoeDaniel.com, it's my email address, my personal email address, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Somebody found out that I was a guy who might want to buy my name, and they just
sitting on it. Oh, that's fun. Awesome. Well, we are real quick, guys. We're kind of doing ads a little bit different here moving forward. So I spent this weekend with Ace Sports and talking with Mark, and he said, Daniel, we have to weave the ads in because people are just skipping them. And so he's got all these professionals at all these big shows, trade shows, and everything's like, yeah, nobody's listening to your ads anymore. Probably doesn't help. It's the same ad for 3 years. That's good for us. We've had a lot of support from Ace Sports over 3 years, but probably time to freshen that ad up a little bit. But guys, if you are looking for Ace Sports, we've done a ton of live stuff. You can go back wherever you're watching now. If you're looking on YouTube or Facebook, Twitter, I was live all day the last 2 days. Go find any of those. But Ace Sports is just giving coaches a chance to fundraise and improve their program. My son is homesick from school, so he's staring at me in the window or in the door. Asports.com. Go check out the boards they have. Super easy. Kenny's a great liaison for them. He's bought 2 boards from them and watched it work at 2 different level schools. Your school isn't too small. Your school isn't too big. Ace Sports can help you, and they're definitely putting the best product on the market. Sweet. Let's jump into part 1. And Joe, we're going to let you talk first. You're the man of the hour here. So what is the 4-2-5 for all the guys that are new or just researching? And how does it really differ from these other offensive or defensive schemes?
I mean, years ago, I did a podcast that upset a lot of people and made football simpler for a lot of people. That there's basically 4 defenses in football. And so if we want to talk about what a 4-2-5 defense is, it's an even 8-man front. And that's the very simple. You can call it a 4-2-5. You can call it a 4-4. You can call it a 6-2. The core structure of it is the same. 4 down linemen, 2 inside linebackers, 2 outside linebackers, safeties, ends, whatever you want to call them, that are essentially your force players, contained players. 1 high safety is the base. Then obviously we know that you can expand into split field coverage, but that's kind of the starting point, is it? Even 8-man front. And so what that essentially means is 4 down linemen and everybody, 1 guy for each gap, is as opposed to a 7-man front where we have to 2 gap something. So, I mean, that's a really basic. I think that the idea of 4-2 is absolutely overblown and like, oh, it's a spread defense or whatever, we get into all that. But like, that's just completely meaningless to me.
When people get into the 7 versus 8 and how do you gap exchange or eliminate a gap, or that gets very technical. And I don't know that we can teach high school kids that, especially as they're, you're trying to take over and change culture somewhere or whatever. So having the ability to just plug all the gaps right now is really nice.
Yeah, but I mean, it is, but like everything that we teach creates a lot of those things that people have really big words for, creates those naturally. And I can teach a 10-year-old that stuff. And so, and it creates what you want without using a lot of real complex words and just really try to simplify things. I learned 4-2-5 from TCU, not like I didn't go to TCU. I met a lot of people who did go to TCU. And I also managed to find a lot of random bootleg videos from TCU, clinic tapes and stuff, and like just tapes that you're like, who is filming this, and why were they filming this, and why is it on the internet, and why is it just out there? A lot of which has been cleaned up, but some of it's just still available. But I just did a deep dive on it, and so but like some people have a very clear picture in their mind of what a 4-2-5 defense is, and I started studying from the 1999 TCU playbook. In 2009, I coached in a 4-2-5 defense at Ellsworth College, and it was kind of built off of TCU with Ricky Kuhn, who's at Southeast Missouri State, and then we went from there, and I started learning different things and pulling in different pieces. And I can tell you that then I went back and started studying some TCU stuff in like 2015. Totally different defense. So, like when people are like, "No, this is a 4-2-5." Or I'll get people who will tell you, but that's a nickel defense. I'm like, I don't care. It's fine. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's 4-2-5. I'm like, there's a basic core structure that makes it a 4-2-5. And even that isn't like that, dogmatic.
Right. You don't have to gatekeep being a 4-2-5. Is that what you're saying? You
Yeah.
just kind of put kids out there.
Not that big a deal. Put 11 kids out there and then figure out how to put them in places and stop them.
I love it. So when we change that, so you said earlier, like sometimes people call it a 4-4, a 4-2, probably not a 4-3, but we just get basically you can be pretty balanced, right? I mean, at the end of the day, single high, you can kind of answer all the questions. Basing out of a cover 3 is very simple, and then we get the run fits, which all make sense. And no one's changing hands. My force guy is always my force guy, right? When we get into the odd front stuff, sometimes we got to switch. Is that outside backer? Is he the actual force guy? Is he the alley guy?
Yeah.
You never know, right? You got to switch.
Rolling. The biggest. So go
So
ahead.
I would ask him, Joe, like for me, because you see the forefront, I get it. I'm an odd front guy. So you're not in my world here, but I'm trying to learn it because we play it. And I'm also trying to learn it because my son's about to go play in it. The difference in a 4-2-5 and a 4-3, to me, that's where it can get really, not confusing, but it can be a little different. Obviously, my assumption is in a 4-2-5, that third linebacker is really probably considered a DB in your defense. But when I watch Harding play, when I watch these teams that we go against, I can see a 3D, a 5 shell at times where you wouldn't see that in a 4-3. So to me, when you're looking at it, is that the biggest difference? Because I would imagine the 4 up front is probably going to be very similar in a 4-3 versus a 4-2-5. I can't see them doing, a lot of different things, just mainly on the back end.
That was the next thing is the difference between a 4-3 and a 4-2. I have a very specific one thing makes this difference, and it changes everything else around it. Ultimately, yeah, you've just kind of slid guys over, and your strong safety is the Sam backer. But where that comes from is simply this, and you have to have a tight end on the field for this to matter. If you have a tight end on the field, if they have a tight end, if the strong end is playing, basically if he's C-gap responsible, so if he's in a 6-eye or a 7, or if he's in a head up, but he's C-gap responsible, that allows the strong safety to leave the box. It takes away it creates one less gap. So what happens is now it becomes an 8-man front instead of a 7-man front. If the defensive end is in a 9 technique outside of the tight end, I have 3 open gaps, and I have a 2-gap linebacker because I also have to have somebody filling essentially the alley to the outside. It changes where the alley play is. That change, and by the way, this is not universal. I remember I had a guy that I played college football with, and he was at William & Mary at the time. He was on the podcast years ago, Trey Henderson, and he started talking about William & Mary's defense at the time. He started talking about they were a cover 2 and they were a 4-2 or something like that, and I was like, no, he started explaining. And I was like, that's 4-3 to me, but it doesn't matter. Or it might have been vice versa, but that is the single difference is that if that defensive end is responsible for an interior gap, C gap, then you need to have, you are a 4-2. and you can allow that extra linebacker to leave the box. If you are a 4-3, you are a 2-gap front, the Sam linebacker has to stay in the box with the tight end. Once you take the tight end off the field, there's no difference. Now, because of the fact that your base is with a C-gap defender, all of your umbrella, all of your back end has been adapted to that. And so when the tight end leaves the field, you are left with the remnants of that. So it does look different. But ultimately, that's the difference. And that causes all of the other things that you see related to the 4-3 back end.
Okay, I'm gonna go off script a little bit here, Daniel, since I'm not going to answer any questions because I don't have any good answers. I don't run this. I'm gonna help you a little bit here, maybe. So here's my other question: is like in our defense, we run a 3-4. We can have what I call a divorced call. So we can call the front and then call the back. And we have several calls where it's a combined call in your front and your defense. Can you do that, or is it basically the front will dictate the coverage, or do you have the ability to, I want to call this front, but I want to run our version of roll cover 3, cover 2, cover 1, whatever? Because the 3-4, that's one of the reasons we really enjoy that, is we have the ability to do so. You obviously have one less cover guy. So how do you guys handle that? Is it a one-word call for all of them, or is it kind of a call for the back end, call for the front end?
Yeah, no, everything is, we can call the coverage we want separate from the front. The front, and again, we use the umbrella run fit system that I took from TCU. The front 6 are in their world. We can use different strength calls. So the back end can have a separate strength call from the front. And then of course they just have to echo to the line. You have an away. If you do that, you have an away side and a read side linebacker. A lot of teams don't do that because, especially if you're not split field quarters, there's not any value to it if you're base cover 3, cover 1. But if we can definitely divorce the front from the back end, we can make coverage checks. We can make different coverage calls. You just have to echo them to the linebacker. We do the same thing in our 3-4 system. Our 3-4 system is really just a kicked over 4-2 is the way that we look at it. But yeah, we have a lot of flexibility in the coverage. The 4-2-5, not to jump ahead, the 4-2-5 coverage wise, base wise, everything is really simple, really flexible, really versatile. The place that the 4-2-5 doesn't do as well is blitz angles. Everything else, I love it. 3-4, 4-3, 33 have better blitz angles, better blitz patterns. 4-2-5 is a little bit tougher to blitz out of, especially exotic blitzes.
And is that because you're just already plugging all the holes, right? So everybody's replacing someone else, and it gets pretty chaotic. If I'm blitzing just a Mike, he's going through his gap, which he was going to play anyway.
Well, I would argue most of their defenses, he said, you can 2-gap players, which gives you a lot more ability to blitz, and it's almost like blitzing out consequences. If he's a single gap guy, somebody gets out of their gap, touchdown. Like that's what I would think.
So the biggest challenge is not so much in the interior gaps, but it is the fact that those 6 guys under the umbrella, your spill players under the umbrella, your defensive linemen, your inside linebackers are there. They're under. So it's not a guy like in a 4-3 will linebacker. That guy is standing, outside of a 5 technique defensive end. So he's flexible. He can go to the flat. He could roll back. He could do anything. If I have a B gap will linebacker, he's a B gap will linebacker, right? He's over top of the guard. And the only way to move him out safely with leaving a gap uncovered is to slant my defensive end into the B gap to cover that. And then my will can be flexible. Now, as you get to higher levels, which your son will probably be dealing with it, the way that coaches deal with it is those safeties are a lot more aggressive and can come and you can have a safety come and fit B gap. You can do it that way. So whereas when we're coaching high school kids, especially if we're a base, cover 3 or something like that, I might not want that. What we do is we line up in a 4-3 look or a 3-4 look, and we blitz from that. And it's great because the other team thinks that you're multiple front, and you really just line up in that front to run one blitz. You have no idea how to run a 4-3, but yeah, it's what I started to say was the thing that causes the problem is not just those guys being under there. What ultimately you will see is if you bring one of those overhang safeties, the strong safety, weak safety, we almost never bring the free safety at all. It's not impossible. You can do it, but it's just wonky. It's ugly. It doesn't work really well. If you bring one of those overhang safeties, there's not somebody in a great position to replace him as your force defender. To whereas when I'm in a 4-3 or a 3-4 and I go too high and I bring one of my edge guys, I just roll somebody else over and we have it covered.
Yeah, the year I was at Owasso, the freshman DC there, I tried to play around with sending free safeties, strong safeties, and the free safety was fun. Man, he comes, it gets there very quick.
Better.
You know, you're stuck in that 3-over-3 and you're trying to get a kid back there over the top from a weird alignment, and it can get pretty wonky.
It's just wonky. Yeah. I mean, you can, like, guys will say, well, we do it. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. Like, people also run, 3 under 2 deep blitzes. And it's like, does it work? Sometimes, sure. Is it like sound? Not exactly. Like, it's kind of like when you play on I work with a lot of 8-man, 9-man schools. I don't know how much you work with 8 and 9-man schools, but like, most of them play on 100-yard fields, and it's like, I can't cover all that. We don't have enough guys.
Right. I'm going to mix up the order here just a little bit, and so we can stay in the scheme world. People are seeing a lot more heavy offenses right now because of people like Kenny, people like you, Joe, that are 12 personnel type guys. This season, and maybe last year, but this season, definitely NFL even's getting back in the phone booth, right? We're watching that. I think it trickled up. I think high school offenses were like, hey, come stop us. We're in 13, right? What are you going to do? And now NFL's like, okay, maybe we got to get back because defenses got skinnier and faster, and we're going to put them back in the phone booth. So we're seeing a lot of that now. So how does your 4-2-5 adjust to play those heavier offenses, whether it's too tight or tight end wing, all of those crazy things people are throwing out right now?
Tight end wing is an interesting one. So that's what we get a lot of. There's some guy out there telling people to run a tight end wing on one side and twins on the other side. And so we keep seeing all that crap. And guys panic with it. And I'm like, just put and I know we can sit here and you probably destroyed teams that did this, but I've also done it against teams that aren't coached by you. And, and we are fine in our base because we have that guy in the 6 technique over top of the tight end, and we're able to handle that. And what happens is people go, well, we've got to handle that gap between the tight end and the wing, and they take the strong safety and they stick him down in that gap, and then you jet by him or whatever, and you have no force defender. Then you go, okay, well, I'm going to leave him out there and have the corner fit that. It's like, fine, now you have nobody deep. So we have to be able to play it and understand that that's the alley of the defense. And only if we have a team that just can't throw the ball, then we can take the free safety off and just go ahead and stick a guy in the alley there and go with a heavy look and basically play a 2 deep. One of the things is, and if JDFB coaches in the chalkboard, I mentioned this, I talked about this. This is going to be my off-season project. Is we are seeing so much more of this. We are seeing so much more dead T, straight T, whatever you want to call it, than we ever saw in the past. Outside of Michigan, like that thing didn't get run anywhere. Michigan and Minnesota, and I think Ricori up in Minnesota. Somebody ran up there that had a lot of success. Of course, the funny thing is the teams that ran it had tons of success, but if you try to install it in the middle of Virginia 5 years ago, everybody, all the kids are going to leave. So that's one of the big focuses is how we're going to handle those in the offseason is looking into how we're going to handle that. We have solved as much as can be solved the double wing problem. So when you talk about double wing, tight end wing to both sides, one back motion, superpower, all that sort of stuff, double wing, because sometimes it's not flex bone. It's not the same thing. It's tight end wing on both sides. It creates 10 gaps, which is what makes it different than everything else. When you have 10 gaps to defend, you have to be 2 guys. There's no option, because if you fill 10 gaps, one guy can't cover both halves of the field. So we got that from Rick Stewart, who sold out Tim Murphy on a webinar that we did years ago and told us what Tim Murphy said would stop it. I installed it. We happened to have a really good double wing team that year. We shut them down. It was great. The athletic director yelled at me in the handshake line. It was awesome. We beat them. They scored 80 points the next 2 weeks because they were so mad. It works fantastic. We've used it week in. Every double wing team, we've used it for years now. We got a solution for that one. And that does work to an extent for some of the other heavy fronts. Like if you get a 33, is it 30, 23, 32 personnel. There we go. I got there eventually. 32 personnel, 2 tights with the dead T or with the wishbone. It does work. But I think we're looking for some more answers on that, and just different things that we can do, different looks that we can show. Besides just saying get into a goal line 6-2, because when you do that, which is the solution that a lot of coaches come up with, when you get into a goal line 6-2, you don't have good force. Fine on the goal line, not good in the middle of the field.
For sure.
We end up in a 5-man front. Just that's the story.
Yeah. So 5-man front ends up called an over and under, whatever version you're sliding to, kind of becomes your answer for the heavier stuff.
Yeah, it ends up with the double wing. It ends up being a balanced 5-man because they can go both ways. You know, you can't shade one way or the other. If you get into like single wing, we just slide everybody over a guy. If it's unbalanced, single wing, that kind of stuff. Basic. The key thing is double wing's the only one that we have like a double wing defense for. Everything else right now, it's all built in. 2 tights, it's all just built into the system.
And my question wouldn't be so much scheme. Like I get you're going to move them around, and that's the flexibility. It makes sense. My question would be more of how you choose personnel. If you know on the schedule, we're going to have 5 10 personnel teams and 2 20 personnel teams, but then the teams we got to beat. Now I'm getting into 12 and 21. Do you personnel that game, or how do you choose your personnel? Because my concern with running it, if I was going to run the 4-2-5, the same thing with the 3-4. We all have concern. I'm not putting more on one than the other. My concern would be trying to find, like I was lucky I had my kid, Braden, he was the player of the year. He could be that. Roll down and play 9, roll back and play deep high safety. But there aren't a lot of kids that walk around that can do that. So how do you handle week to week? I need you to be back here playing quarters or whatever, and then also roll into the box and be a force player. What are you doing in that world?
I think one of the most important things that we've done is built everything around. I talk a lot about non-negotiables. This is every position, but I talk a lot about non-negotiables. There's one thing at every position that in order to play that position, you must be able to do this skill. And one of the things that I really worked at with that, because we work with a lot of teams that don't have a lot of players, don't have a lot of talent. They just they put their best 11 on the field, whether it's youth, whether it's middle school, whether it's high school, varsity. We put the best 11 on the field. If we got 25 guys, we're going to find the best 11 and they're going to be out there. And so in finding those non-negotiables, it needs to be things that don't require any talent. So, for example, on our defensive line, whether you're a heavy front or whatever, if you can't squeeze a down block, you can't play for us. Meaning if that guy blocks down, you bend down with him, and that creates that automatic spill. But it takes no talent to do that. And so we just know that's the core thing. So as long when I change the front, when I play a different defense, as long as you can execute those skills, the way that we built the defense, as long as you can execute the basic skills, you can do it against just about everybody. And if I had a guy, now there are times that we do, I'll give you an example. We often make our weak side end whoever, and this is one of the things that I think people get wrong about 4-2 versus 3-4. Daniel and I have talked about it. I think you need 3 linemen more so in a 30 front. I think we can use, really 1 true defensive lineman. Usually our weak side end, because we don't see that many 2 tights, is the guy that lost the safety battle, right? He's the 4th safety. He's the one who's a good athlete but doesn't play that well in space. And we put him at the weak side end. We might let him stand up. We might just let him go. Sometimes it's just But if we play a heavy too tight team, that guy might come off more often, and we put in like another defensive lineman if we have him to handle that spot. Otherwise, when we play, we might play with the personnel on who can go where, and every defense needs that Swiss Army guy, the guy who can jump from safety to linebacker to defensive end and survive. But we might personnel. I mean, we certainly will personnel some. So in our going back to our double wing, in our double wing, the guy that we usually sub in is the nose. And so that's the kind of the key. And everybody else, the tackles just slide out. They actually play in four eyes, but double wing is foot to foot splits. So it's like you'd need a magnifying glass to tell the difference. So they're in four eyes, and then we have six eyes or six techniques or that kind of stuff. So we'll personnel who that fifth lineman that comes in is. But everybody else is probably just our guys that know how to play defensive line. They know how to squeeze a down block. They know how to they know pass rush lanes, depending on what you're seeing.
That's awesome. Yeah, go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, sorry, one more thing on that. So when you're picking personnel, I'm not going to make you go through every position.
Yeah.
Guys can go by your system if they want all that detail. But I do want to ask this one. So do you start back end first or front end back? Like, you're an average coach. You got an average team. You don't have studs, but you do have a few. Are you plugging them into this spot or this spot and kind of filling the rest with what you got? How do you kind of do that?
Yeah, it's definitely starts with one player. And it's because of our run fit system and the way that everything works is who's the best football player. He plays free safety. Especially if you're split field quarters, you got to find two, because that weak safety, as Daniel found out, that weak safety has got to be able to come down and force from a distance, and that's important. If you're cover 3, cover 1 as your base, which most of our teams, until you get to a certain level, if you're 1 and 9, you need to find the teams you can beat in a cover 3 first, and then you can worry about the ones you need to pattern match. So we will start out with best guy free safety. If you have average spill defenders under the umbrella, your defensive linemen, your linebackers, average force defenders on the edges, they're going to create an alley that is, let's say on average 3 yards wide. I have my best player coming down. He's now doing an open field tackle drill in a 3-yard box. He wins that. I have a great defense. I have average spill, average force, great alley. I have a great defense. If I have great spill, great force, and they create an alley that is 3 inches wide, but there's daylight, and the free safety is standing back at 8 yards, you just gave up 8 yards. So if you have a bad free safety and great everything else, your defense sucks. If you have a great free safety and average or even below average, but you do things correctly, you will have a very good defense. So we start with the free safety. And then everything else kind of, is what you expect, who are the defensive linemen, the big guys. We start there. Who are the force, the overhang safeties are your next best tacklers. And like I said, the one that loses that battle, he goes to defensive end. Everything else is kind of what you expect it to be.
We're going to get into kind of evolving over the years, but we had a question about a 3 safety. Have you dabbled with 3 safety systems at all and trying to pair that? Or is that what the 4-2-5 is already?
Yeah, I never understand this. Okay, so guys are like, we run 3 guy safeties. If you so line up in a 2-by-2 formation. It can be anything. It can be 10 personnel. It can be 12 personnel. It doesn't matter. Like 2 tight ends, whatever. You've got 4 receivers out there, and we play cover 1. Okay, our safeties play 7-by-3 outside leverage of the number 2 receiver. Our corners, let's say we're playing off, whatever, we can press, doesn't matter. Our corners are out there playing man on number 1. We're 7-by-3 off the number 2 receiver. Okay. Our free safety, depending on what you run, is somewhere between 9 and 12 yards. So everybody is somewhere between 7 to 12 yards off. So that's it. And guys show me their 3 high safety look, and I go, that's our base defense. It's just you backed them up a little bit. And if you want to back them up more and insert the free safety in different places, you can do that. But you're essentially just exchanging positions. So it's nothing but it doesn't change the structure of the defense. It's nothing but a function of disguise. That's it.
Yeah.
And so if you want to do that, fantastic. We've got web clinics. Our platinum clients have access to a web clinic, and one of our coaches who adapted it to 3 high safeties. He loved it. He talked about it. He uses our principles. He does it with 3 high safeties. He talked about it for an hour, and I went, it's there. You can do it. It's simple. But it's not game changing.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's jump into the evolution. So as offenses have become formation heavy, kind of how has the 4-2-5, the JDFB 4-2-5 evolved, or has it even had to handle? I once was aligning to 4 formations a game and had to stop 16 different plays. Now I'm stopping 4 plays, but it's 65 formations a game. Has that had to change the way you're doing things? Has it had to evolve, or has everything kind of stayed base?
Everything's built into the system. There's some things that had to be built into the system a little bit more focused on, but everything is built into the defensive system. And I think that it doesn't matter if you're odd front, even front. I don't care what defense you run. And quite honestly, I know we're talking 4-2, but I really don't care about any of that. As you know, we talk about it all the time. I don't care about 4-2, 3-4. The base underlying principles, like we talk about our umbrella run fits principles, that's what matters. The adjustments are built into the system, baked into the system. That's what matters. Everything for us, like how we handle 2 tights, how we handle, anything like that, it's all built in. How we adjust to trips, how we adjust to motion, it's all built in. So I think that's one of the true benefits of our systems is you can come out. It became a joke when one year we were running this, and we saw everything. We saw double wing, we saw spread, we saw wing T, we saw single wing, we saw every offense under the sun. And we would come in and I would pull 10 clips because my kids have short attention span. We watched 10 clips on Monday of their offense. Here's their base plays. What are we going to do? And the kids knew we're going to do what we do. We changed nothing. We saw the double wing for the double wing, and once we got that installed, it stayed the same the rest of the year. We changed nothing. We do what we did. It didn't matter to us. What mattered more was that we played with great technique and alignment, really alignments first, and then technique and everything. And that takes care of itself. You don't need the more gimmicks. And coach, because you run goofy wing T stuff, which should be illegal, you see all sorts of ridiculous adjustments to what you're doing. And all it does, it might take you a minute. Now that you've been doing it for so long, it probably didn't take that long. It might take you a minute to adjust to it, but it's all built in how you adjust to it and what you do with it, but it just makes them worse. So if you have a bunch of
that's coaching 101. That's what the podcast is here. If you're putting in a defense of the week or an offense of the week or whatever of the week, the odds of that being successful are not high unless you just have dominant athletes, and then you can probably do whatever you want anyway. And that's why to us, you're going to run a 4-2-5, you probably have built-in adjustments. We run a 3-4, we have built-in adjustments. We should know. You've already mentioned it, and I think that was, to me, it's good to hear coaches admit, like, there is a weakness in this defense we've got to be aware of because we've got to have answers. I understand, and if I'm in a 3-4 and you line up and double tight and shove it down my throat or unbalanced, there's some weaknesses there that we better have some answers for. And that's what this offseason should be. It's all right, where we want to run a 3-4, we're on a 4-2-5, we're on a 4, whatever you want to run. I don't really care. Whatever fits your kids, run that. But look at the schedule that's coming. Like, what do I have to do? And you mentioned it. I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but I thought you did a good job of mentioning if you're 1-9, what are the 3 or 4 teams you can realistically beat? What do they run? Let's make sure that we're gearing up our defense and our adjustments to stop that. Or if you were lucky, we were lucky last year and we went 10-2. Well, the team that beat me just won a state championship. Well, if I want to get back to that level, what did they do that presented issues for me? In Arkansas, most elite teams are still running 20 personnel and 10 personnel. Like, that's why we kind of live with what we live with. defensively. If the gun T was taking over Arkansas, like I seem to think it's taken over Virginia, Carolina, I just know that because a lot of guys talk to me from there, then I may have to look at a 4-2-5 or a 4-3 or something a little heavier because I've got to be ready to beat those teams. So that's kind of where I would go. I thought you did a good job kind of mentioning that, Coach.
We got one more fan question here, and then we'll get into our last one. I know we're kind of pushing it on time. What do you think of building a defense with a modular structure, Mike McDonald structure with just universal run fits? I mean, that's kind of what
I need an interpreter.
Yeah, I think, basically the module. And so let's just get to this next question because you're going to answer it right here. Why the Joe Daniel system versus any other football system on the market right now? If you want a defense, why do they come to you? Why JoeDanielFootball.com?
It's simple. It's like the number one reason is that I don't care about the 4-2, and I don't care about the 3-4, and I don't care about the 3-3, and I don't care about the 4-3, though I will tell you that 95% of coaches and 0% of youth coaches should be running a 4-3. You need to be you either need to be at a big school with a lot of good coaches, or you need to be recruiting your kids. College. But I love it. I think it's the best one, but you got to have all the pieces. Because the complexity goes way, way up. The 4-2-5 that we teach, and we do the same thing with the 3-4, and we do the same thing with the 3-3. The only difference is how much control you want to have and how comfortable you are with being simple. So what matters is we teach a universal system. You're going to call it, we teach a run fit system called the umbrella run fit system. That is the core principle of everything. It is simple. You can teach it in 10 minutes. All of your coaches, all of your players will understand how their position fits into the defense. They all have an understanding of what's going on. Then we use the ASCA leverage principle. We use ASCA, which is the alignment stance key read assignment. Took it from TCU. I'm sure they took it from somewhere else. I know I had heard of it before I heard of it from TCU, but it's one of those stupid things where I got it from TCU and then I started talking about it a lot. Now when I try to Google it, find out where it came from, I'm the one that comes up. I didn't come up with it for sure. So ASCA alignment stance key read assignment. You lay that out. We lay that out very simply. These are the things that matter. This is where you align. We've worked with 10,000 different football programs, so I can tell you that we've got a pretty good idea of the alignments that work. Stance, we've done the same thing. Tons and tons of football coaches, tons and tons of defenses. This is the stance that works. We get the stance and the alignment right. This is the key reads that create the best results. We've broken everything down to like the 80-20 principle of like, look, we cut out all of the stuff, all the drills that are on YouTube, all the drills that are on all the dumb, awful things that are on Twitter. And we said, look, here's 2, 3, 4 drills, depending on position, that you need to run to get the 90% level for your players. And guys go, well, I need the other 10%. Most of your players right now are operating at about 40%, right? You need to get them to doing the 90% of the time doing exactly what they need to do. And then you can worry about the rest of it. So we just focus on that simple approach. Everything's built in, everything's easy to teach, everything's easy to understand, and it is a system. A system of these are the drills that you run, why you run the drills, how you teach your players to understand these drills so that they know that practice is productive and important. Here's the practice plan. Here's how to organize your drills. Here's how to progress from one-on-one game to group to team. Here's how to put it all together. Here's how to put together a script. Here's how to put together. Here's how to teach it. Here's the reasons behind it. Everything, you can go super deep on it, but it's all a system. That's one thing that I've heard more and more from coaches, especially recently, that they really appreciate about what we do is it is truly a system. And it's not, I think the other thing is, Coach, remember when Tony Franklin came in and a lot of guys were like, that was the first system, and guys were like, is that even coaching if you're just getting handed a system? And then you find out Tony Franklin has 10,000 plays and you get to run like 5 of them. Like that's like, this is not a handcuff. This is not like somebody's handing it. If you start out in our system in the very base, 4-2-5, cover 3, super simple. And you take your team and you stop the bleeding, you stop the 0-10, and you get to 3-7, you get to 4-6, you get to 5-5. Well, then there's a whole universe of things that you can expand to and you can do and you can add, and it will become your own and it will evolve. And then you can go sell it to other people in 5 years. Like, knock yourself out. Plenty of people have tried. So, but I guess that's the thing, is like, why is it there? It's super simple to get started. You'll get in, you will stop the bleeding, you will get things going in the right direction, and then it can evolve. It's going to evolve.
Most coaches, I don't know about you, Joe, but most coaches that come and they want to learn my offense, they want to learn R3-4, they want to learn whatever. It's not that you couldn't find all that stuff. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Guys have run 4-2-5 for years, but if I can go one stop and save myself hours and hours of time, I can at least go from there. And we encourage guys that run the gun T, or they run R3-4, or I'm sure you do your 4-2-5. Look, if you want to name it something different with a terminology you're already comfortable with, if that's easier for you, do that, and the same thing with, I'm sure your system is, if you're transitioning from this to this and your kids already know, well, it's easier to teach yourself something new than to teach every kid something new. So, I don't care what you call it, but the value, I think, coming to a guy like you or coming to a guy like me or coming to whoever, Tony Franklin back in the day, was not that it's not a dummy proof system. Like, you can't just get this and wake up and Monday roll it out there and you're going to be good. It's that we're going to give you enough resources, and I know you do too, where you can tweak it and adjust it and know it's so in depth that now you can build off a solid foundation, a solid foundation, and then go where you want to go. And I think that's the value of looking over your system and your stuff. I know I've come on and done some things with you, and I've looked at your stuff, and I mean, you may get, hey, well, this is very base. Well, that's what you need. You need to be really good at base and then kind of go from there. I do want to kind of talk, Daniel, I don't know if you have this in the questions or not, but apparently we're going to be in Boston at the same time. We're running separate clinics. So if you're an offensive guy, I want to hear the gun T, you can come over and hear me. But Daniel said y'all are going to try your first in-person clinic. So I'm kind of curious to hear about that.
We are. I want to mention one thing. If you search, every once in a while, I don't know if you do this, every once in a while I Google my name. I search Joe Daniel football just to see what comes up. And there's a Reddit post.
Hold on. I'm nervous to do that about my name for what
I do. I don't do it as much as I used to because I don't care anymore. But there's a Reddit post that comes up, and there's a guy who somebody asked like about the different systems, Google Pleasure Drive and Joe Daniel football and stuff. And a guy responded, and it's like the top comment. And he says like, you can find all these things on YouTube. There's thousands of hours of clinics on YouTube, and I watch them all the time. And I watch an hour clinic every day or something like that. And it was like, he was supposed to be like, I think he thought that he was like, pointing out why you don't need us. And I was like, now I'm going to leave that one because that's exactly why. Because there were like, there's replies of people who are like, I don't have 1,000 hours to watch clinics. That's it.
Amen.
So yeah, we're going to be doing an in-person clinic. I think it's the first time we've talked about it publicly. So we're going to be doing our first in-person clinic coming up here in the spring. And I think summer.
Spring. It is spring.
I'll show up.
Yeah, we're doing March 13th and 14th, I believe, is the dates. We're squaring those away, make sure the school can, but it'll be right there the same as Kenny. So it'll be that Friday evening, Saturday, all day Saturday. And then I'm not flying out till Sunday. So if somebody wants to have breakfast and continue talking, we can absolutely do that. Joe will kind of see what your schedule looks like at that same time. We intended to do it a week later, but the military said I have to go away. So we're gonna slide it back. So we'll be in South Boston. Con Chase is working with a school up there now, so Con will be there. So if you guys are a fan of his and all the success he's had, he'll be at the clinic and BSing with us too. So it's a great time. 4-2-5 base this first year as we get Joe and I used to. Kenny's in now. What you got 9 this year, right? 9 good.
Yeah, I got 9. I'm actually first, we had to move our Boston one from April to March, so I'm kind of disappointed in that part because I'll be cold. But I am excited to get back to Boston. And Joe, if you've never been, I don't know if you've been to Boston or not. It's one of my favorite cities, so you're gonna have a good time. And I'm sure if you're a guy listening to the podcast, and maybe a time we can figure out some kind of social event. Daniel can be the social coordinator there and maybe figure something out for us.
Got you.
Daniel's in charge of ours because I don't coordinate.
Logistics is like one of my expertises, apparently. But yeah, so 13th and 14th will be the dates on ours, and then like I'm sure we're gonna try to catch a Bruins game. I'm bringing the family, so you guys that want to come up and just hang out and a little bit of socialization there. It should be a really fun time. Much like, I mean, can we just be honest here? I copy pasted Coach Kenny Simpson's clinic, his exact format because it worked so well and it was in and out.
I've done in-person clinics and I've done like in-person installs and it's literally just a copy of what Kenny did. I'm like, here.
Well, that's it. I mean, it works. We just kind of gave the credit. I looked at Tony Franklin. That's where I got it from.
Right.
Everybody gets it from somebody. But I do think hopefully y'all are going to do the in-person demo, player demo, or some kind of demo. I think that's been the best part of our clinic, and hopefully Daniel can set that up for you guys too. I think that's what makes my clinics, hopefully your clinics, different than other people is you can go to your website and look up all the stuff online.
That's right.
But in person, watching you work with actual players lets somebody know, oh, okay, this is not just theory. It can be done,
Yeah. We did get some anti-confusion here from Coach. It was asking about the Mike McDonald stuff. I didn't know who he was, Joe. I assume you didn't either.
Oh, I know he is.
He just teaches it fronts, then pressure pass, then coverages. I think the Joe system, and I'll just speak here because I've been a guy that's been digging through it for 6 years now. You can teach it in whatever format you want. We have the base, like Joe said. If you go to his website, you're going to see the 3-4, the 4-2-5, the 4-4, the 3-3 stack. So you can even be multi-front, and it all stays in the same verbiage. It starts with the run fits up front. Run whatever coverage you kids can handle. If you want to go split field, go split field. If you need to stay base cover 3 to win your games this year, do that. So you can kind of install them. The blitzes, I 100% think the blitzes are they're almost optional. Like the base covers so many things. You get into 3-3 world, I'm sure that I'm not a comfortable 3-3 guy. So, if you get into the 3-3 world, I'm sure you have to blitz every time from somewhere. And then Kenny, you have a little fan mail here from the same coach. So,
nice. Well, it looks like you got to read that one to me, Dan. It was my eyes.
Yeah. He said, a longtime fan get asked because you've had some experience with the conceptual teaching of basketball. Have you delved into constraints-led approach to coaching in football?
And if I can interpret all that, because you sound smart.
I get all the dumb coaches.
Yeah, apparently I got guys in here that are way smarter than me. Now, I'm assuming you're talking about teaching in concepts and all that. Yes. Defensively, we do try to, and this is where we're different. I know we're talking about Joe, so I don't want to get off topic here, but we don't even really talk about force. Like, I don't know if our kids know what force means. We talk about leverage. It's the same thing. We all use the different words to get to the same thing. What can a 16-year-old with an IEP this long understand? That's what we're trying to kind of work with. And so we use words like leverage. So that allows our kid to know I have the deepest hip. So which should cover the following. I have the pitch on option. I have outside blitz on rollout. I have back out if he leaks out. So we're trying to, what can I teach? One word that teaches a 16-year-old and covers my bases on those three things. I would have quarterback on zone read because now I have the deepest hip in the backfield. So again, it shrinks. Instead of me teaching them 4 situations like Joe probably does, it's one thing. And now that should overlap. Or we teach a safety. We're going to be an inside fitter unless we're blitzing the linebacker, and then we become an outside fitter. All we're doing is just changing the one-word concepts, which allows you to become multiple when you overlay them. Same thing as basketball, because football's fluid, especially on defense. It's very fluid. Right. And if you don't teach it that way, you start getting guys going, well, I thought I had X or Y or Z, and they run something you haven't practiced, and they don't know the answers to it. I think you have to teach defense conceptually, where I have a rule, and this rule ought to cover all these things, and I don't like the word except. So let's try to make it a real simple rule.
Love it. Yeah, we talk about if-thens, and if you have more than one if-then in a play call,
you're in trouble.
There's always one if-then because it's if it's a run, if it's a pass. But after that, it better be clearly defined from there.
Correct.
100%. Awesome, guys. One last time, Joe, pitch where your stuff is at. Where can people go to get into the Joe Daniel football family?
Yeah, you can go to joedanielfootball.com. If you're interested in what we do have some articles. I have been doing some writing recently, so we've got articles in cover 1, cover 3, strength and weaknesses of the 4-2-5 defense. Just go over to joedanielfootball.com, and there should be a link at the top that's either blogs or articles. We just had a meeting today about changing the word, so it depends on when it gets changed. It might say articles, might say blogs. So there, you can take a look at that, and then also if you want to get the guide to building your ultimate defensive system, download that at footballdefense.com.
Love it.
One thing I want to say, Daniel, I got Joe on here, guys. And if you get both our emails, you need to get Joe's emails for sure because he is such a more talented email writer than I've been around. I'll go click on yours and read them through, and I'm like, I'm jealous.
We just got through the ghost of Christmas past of football, so that was.
I know there's some crazy stuff. He'll put stuff
the ghost of Quickmas future is coming in about an hour here. So there was a couple of 12-ounce cans.
Now, even if you don't want to buy anything, it's worth being on his email list just to kind of read. I'll just read them and go, my goodness,
pretty good. Yeah, they tie ball into all the things. The Darth Vader one is the one that got me hooked. I was like, all right, we can talk about it. You can, let's see, social media. Joe, where are you at on social media, sir?
At Football Info on X, and then at Joe Daniel Football on Instagram, Facebook, Joe Daniel Football on YouTube channel if you want to watch our podcasts. And then, of course, if you like podcasts, I have one. It's called the Football Coaching Podcast, and you can get that as well at joedanielfootball.com.
And Kenny, where are you at, sir?
Yeah, all things FB Coach Simpson. So at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter, FB Coach Simpson at gmail.com for email, fbcoachsimpson.com. So if you have not already signed up, a couple of my clinics are starting to fill up. They're all going to be over there at fbcoachsimpson.com.
Perfect. I am at Coach Chabo OK on Twitter /X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. The Patreon is back online. The season was over for everyone else, and I got bored of not talking with coaches. The Patreon is back. If you want to go over there and sign up, I have tiers from $5 a month to, I don't know, $250 a month or something. Come sign up for something. Let's talk some ball. Lots of different options there. Read the tiers, figure out what version you need. And then, of course, we all have YouTubes. We all have all the things. Go check them out. The podcast is at the Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter /X. I want to thank you for being a listener of the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.